Ellie. I want to welcome you to our Language of the Heart meeting. This is the Stairway Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Jim. I'm an alcoholic. I'm glad to see you all here tonight. This is great. We've got a nice subject to deal with and a nice article. Does anybody that does not have a Language of the Heart book or a partner sitting next that you can read from?
Does anybody not have one? I could lend you one for the meeting. Do you need one?
Yes, please.
Happy John will not let anybody look over his shoulder.
I can lend you one.
Ellie needs one.
I don't have any more. Okay. I can't believe how fast you go.
Well, Doc will let you look on with... Oh, you have your own?
No,
All right.
I didn't want to read it because he's being ugly.
Oh, we'll just...
The coffee is still out, so if anybody wants it, what else there? All right.
All right, enough of this frivolity now. Join together in a moment of silent meditation. We'll say the Serenity Prayer together. Thank you, Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. And Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other. They may solve their common problem and help others recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting to our own contributions. And AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober, help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And our friend Tom is going to read chapter 5 for us, how it works.
Rarely have we seen a person fail who has never recalled our past. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates, they're not at fault, they seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we're like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go any length to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. Now, some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us tried to hold on to old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, and powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half the measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked for protection and care with complete abandonment. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. Our lives had become manageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry it out. Step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaim, "What an order, I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We're not saints. The point is that we want to grow along spiritual lines. The principles that we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear three pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholics and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if we were stopped.
Good, thank you, Tom. Okay, tonight we're going to be studying an article Bill wrote in 1955 entitled Why Alcoholics Anonymous is Anonymous. You will find this article on page 209. Now, much of the same material we find in this article was previously written and printed in the grapevine during the late 1940s when Bill was trying to get the 12 steps adopted. You remember that, the 12 traditions. You remember that the traditions were written in 1945, early 46, and during the next 4 years prior to 1950, when they were finally presented to the First International, Bill spent a large amount of time writing and speaking about the traditions, trying to get them adopted. And so he wrote extensively about each of them, and he had written earlier about the 12 traditions. And the things that he wrote are almost never read, and certainly not understood by the vast majority of people in the program today, because we make certain assumptions about the 12 traditions which are not true. That the 12 traditions have something to do with the fear of being found out. That this is a tradition which is fear-based. That somehow or another people may find out that we're alcoholics or members of this fellowship and therefore cause us personally trouble. Let's see what the 12 tradition is really all about. And also, it's very important to understand that each of the traditions applies not only to our fellowship and to our groups, but they apply equally to us as individuals. As a matter of fact, the basic material flows not from the group interaction, but flows from our individual tendencies, our individual personality traits and defects, and our individual backgrounds. And so we'll see how that ties in with the establishment of a tradition, having arisen truly from the human propensities. On page 209, as never before, the struggle for power, importance, and wealth is tearing civilization apart. Man against man, family against family, group against group, nation against nation. Nearly all those engaged in this fierce competition declare that their aim is peace and justice for themselves, their neighbors, and their nations. Give us power and we shall have justice. Give us fame and we shall set a great example. Give us money and we shall be comfortable and happy. I remember when I used to daydream about being some kind of a czar of the universe. Absolutely, and I knew that if only people would do what I want them to do, this would be a great place to live. And we'd all be happy, especially me. People throughout the world deeply believe that and act accordingly. On this appalling dry bender, society seems to be staggering down a dead-end road. The stop sign is clearly marked. It says disaster. What has this got to do with anonymity and with Alcoholics Anonymous? We of AA ought to know. Nearly every one of us has traversed this identical dead-end path. Powered by alcohol and self-justification, many of us have pursued the phantoms of self-importance and money right up to the disaster stop sign. Then came AA. We faced about and found ourselves on a new high road where the direction sign said never a word about power, fame, or wealth. The new signs read, "This way to sanity and serenity." The price is self-sacrifice. Now we know what the 12 traditions are all about. Our new book, 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, states that anonymity is the greatest protection our society can ever have. It says also that spiritual substance of anonymity is sacrifice. Let's turn to AA's 20 years of experience and see how we arrived at that belief, now expressed in our traditions 11 and 12. At the beginning we sacrificed alcohol. We had to, or it would have killed us. But we couldn't get rid of alcohol unless we made other sacrifices. Big shotism and phony thinking had to go. We had to toss self-justification, self-pity, and anger right out the window. We had to quit the crazy contest for personal prestige and big bank balances. We had to take personal responsibility for our sorry state and quit blaming others for it. Wow, personal responsibility. Quit blaming others. Were these sacrifices? Yes, they were. To gain enough humility and self-respect to stay alive at all, we had to give up what had really been our dearest possession, our ambitions and our illegitimate pride. But even this was not enough. Sacrifice had to go much further. Other people had to benefit too. So we took on some 12-step work. We began to carry the AA message. We sacrificed time, energy, and our own money to do this. We couldn't keep what we had unless we gave it away. Ask yourself, how many people do I know today in AA who actually do this? Do we demand that our new prospects give us anything? Were we asking them for power over their lives, for fame, or for good work, for our good work, or for a cent of their money? No, we were not. We found that if we demanded any of these things, our 12-step work went flat. So these natural desires had to be sacrificed. Otherwise, our prospects received little or no sobriety, nor indeed did we. I have to laugh. There's some people in another group in this town who are now claiming that I charged $75 for doing a fifth step.
It's only 50.
How much did you pay me? I forget. It's almost too ludicrous to pay attention to, but some people are saying it as being true. Thus we learned that sacrifice had to bring a double benefit, or else little at all. We began to know about the kind of giving of ourselves that had no price tag on it. Now let's go over to page 216. We'll see how all these human tendencies, all this power driving, all of this history of ourselves and what we've learned and how we used to be and what we need to be now is coalesced into this 12th tradition. And let's see how that came about. Page 216, the third full paragraph, which begins, "This is why." This is why we see anonymity at the general public level as our chief protection against ourselves, the guardian of all our traditions, and the greatest symbol of self-sacrifice that we know. Of course, no AA need be anonymous to family, friends, or neighbors. Disclosure there is usually right and good. Nor is there any special danger when we speak at group or semi-public AA meetings, provided press reports reveal first names only. Does anybody realize what we're reading here? That the limitations on anonymity, the limitations are at the level of press, radio, films, and TV, public appearances. But before the general public, press, radio, films, television, and the like, the revelation of full names and pictures is the point of peril. This is the main escape hatch for the fearful, destructive forces that still lie latent in us all. Here the lid can and must stay down. We now fully realize that 100% personal anonymity before the public is just as vital to the life of AA as 100% sobriety is to the life of each and every member. This is not the counsel of fear. It is the prudent voice of long experience. I am sure that we are going to listen, that we shall make every needed sacrifice. Indeed, we have been listening. Today, only a handful of anonymity breakers remain. And so that's what the 12th tradition means, that's what the 11th tradition means, and we now know the background and the history of it, and how these traditions were necessary because they arise out of our own natures, our nature being to be power-driving and self-seeking and seeking acclaim and seeking wealth and all those other things that we believed when we were growing up, because we were told that they were critical to our happiness and security, that we had to have all that stuff. And that the seeking of it was good, not bad. That it was our job to go out and get all this stuff. Now we find out that if we're going to live a spiritual way of life, we have to sacrifice all that power driving, all that seeking for power, acclaim, and authority, and for wealth and prestige and all those things. Not that they won't come to some of us, they certainly shall. But it's in God's time, and it is in His will and not ours. And once we accept the fact that it is only for us to do what's in front of us to be done, to do the next right thing and not hurt another person, leaving the results up to God, that's how we get to be happy. Our happiness comes only and solely from a sense of accomplishment. That is to say, from a sense of a victory over self. We get to be happy because we feel successful. We feel successful when we've done what we're supposed to do. And it doesn't matter then what the results are, because we've left those up to God. We stop measuring success in terms of results. We measure success in terms of our actions, our attitudes, and our motivations. And that's when we are able to truly have happiness. It's a fact. And it may be difficult, if you're new, to understand or even accept. If you stick around, you'll find that this is the only thing that really works. Okay, that's enough from me. Now it's time for us to share with each other. Who would like to start? We have plenty of stuff to chew on tonight. Ellie would like to start.
Hi, my name is Ellie and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Ellie.
On page 216 and the chapter that we just, the third complete chapter. This is why we see anonymity at the general public level as our chief protection against ourselves, the guardian of all our traditions and the great symbol of self-sacrifice that we know. Oh, excuse me, it's the next chapter going down. Of course, no AA need be anonymous to family, friends, or neighbors. Disclosure there is usually right and good. I have a problem with that, and I guess it's something that I'd like to put out, and I need a response on how to handle that. I have a great problem with that. Actually, my daughter's now visiting me, and my daughter knows that I'm an AA. And while I was in New Jersey, I was going to AA meetings, and I would just disappear, and I wouldn't tell her where I was going because I thought she's married. So whatever I tell her, she tells her husband. And his family, I mean, I don't understand them because none of them, they drink, but they drink maybe one drink once in a blue moon, and they're very pious, so I can't understand them. So my theory is that if I tell her that I'm going to a meeting, and then he would say, well, where's your mom going? Well, she's going to an AA meeting, and he knows I don't drink, and I don't know what she has told him of our history. So my theory is that then he will tell his family, and his family will tell other people, and most people think that as alcoholics, we're drunk. In other words, if someone is outside getting drunk, well, that's okay, but we're all drunk, that's why we're alcoholics, even though we're not drinking. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to be judged. And today we had a sort of a discussion, and I confided with her that the reason I don't tell her all about me is because I'm afraid that she'll tell Frank, and Frank will tell his family, and I don't want to be judged by his family. And so she said, well, she doesn't tell Frank everything. I said, yes, you do. He's your husband.
Okay.
So how do I handle this anonymity, with your friends and the family?
Well, maybe the problem is not breaking anonymity, but the problem is being judged. And if you're being judged, then what does that mean? In what way does that threaten you? Because there's always going to be a fear involved with something like this. So the first thing we have to do is look, what's the threat? What's the fear?
Because as an alcoholic, you're not a good person. That they may perceive me not to be a good person, and she can't drink. That's why she don't drink heavy. She won't even have a cup of wine. And so I may be perceived as a weak person.
Mm-hmm. This is a
threat. And I don't know what other horror stories she may have shared, because my husband and I, we were a drinking couple, so I don't know if she has shared any. And then I don't know. I just get paranoid about it.
Right. Okay. So maybe the problem here is not whether you tell her, the problem is your fear, right? So there's no reason for you to live in fear. So what we do in here is we learn to take care of our fears. We write about it, talk to somebody about it, and ask God to take away the fear. After the fear is gone, then you can decide what you want to do. The problem is, whenever we pander to fear and we act, we gauge our actions that we take based upon fear, we're always going to be wrong. Always.
Say that again.
Whenever we pander to fear, when we use fear as the raison d'etre, the reason for taking an action, we're always wrong. Always. Because you see, fear cancels out any possibility of rational thought. It cancels out any thought, any possibility of spiritual actions or reactions, because fear is like the big book calls it that evil and corroding thread, and it blocks out everything else. So the moment we discover fear, the first thing we want to do is be free of the fear, and we've got the answer right there in our book. Mm-hmm. We write it down, we talk to somebody about it, and we ask God to take it away. And then when we're free of the fear, then we make rational decisions. It may very well be that there's no reason to tell your daughter, and there's no reason that her family should know. And you can't find any good reason to tell her. In which case, free of fear, you can say, well, I'm just not telling her. It's got nothing to do with whether I get judged or not. Because I stop being afraid of those people. They can't hurt me. Now, on the other hand, you may have a situation where you're afraid that your daughter will be hurt by you being an alcoholic and the family that she's connected with now looking down on her because her mother is an alcoholic.
Actually, I'm not even concerned about her. I'm concerned about me.
I thought we would test that and see, because if that were the case, that might be a perfectly legitimate reason for you to avoid letting anybody know. But this is, I think, you didn't ask me, but I'm volunteering. I believe it's just a simple matter of fear, and you need to deal with the fear. Then you can decide what you want to do. Don't anybody here act on your fears. Get rid of the fears, then act. And we don't have to have fear. We get to be free of fear. We got the tools to be free of it. That's a real good point, Ellie. Thank you. Anyone else like to comment on that part of what we read? This business of revealing or breaking anonymity to family, friends, and business associates and so forth. Yes?
I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic member to Get a Life group. I'm Jay.
Hey, Jay.
Hi, family. I remember when I was very early in recovery, I also had the same fear, not wanting my family to know, because they would probably look down on me terribly, my aunts, uncles, cousins, my extended family. My immediate family obviously knew right from the get-go. So I kept it quiet at the beginning. As time went on and I worked the steps with a sponsor, I learned, as Jim just pointed out, that it was an unfounded fear. It wasn't necessary. When I turned it over to God, I came to realize that whatever anybody else thinks of me is none of my business. Whatever they think is none of my business. As long as I turn it over to him, I put it in his hands, I'm fine with it. As long as I let him run the show. And we know what I came to find out a little later on. They all knew all along, long before I knew that I was an alcoholic, by my actions. Okay? And when they finally did find out that I was a member of AA, they were delighted. They were delighted because I'm now not the same person I was back then. So it was just a question of me putting it in my higher power's hands, and everything worked out the way it was supposed to, for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Who's next? And Marilyn.
Hi, I'm Marilyn. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Marilyn.
Hi. I've been discovering that my true happiness comes from helping other people, and especially helping other alcoholics. And God has been giving me people to help, people asking for my number. Yesterday I went to a party, and this girl sat next to me, started talking to me, and she was in desperate need of some Al-Anon meetings, just seriously. And I was like, thank you, God, for actually being at this party and doing some good work for you. And God's just given me people to help. And so, if anybody knows that I'm in AA, I would personally, I feel that that's good, because no one could come to me for help or refer someone to me for help if they didn't know I was in AA. So if someone broke my anonymity, I wouldn't be afraid of that personally, because it might be an opportunity that I could help. Now, my job is to be the kind of person that they would want to refer. I mean, this is a program of attraction, not a promotion or whatever. I mean, I have to live a life where people say, wow, why don't you go to Marilyn, because, she can help you, rather than, I mean, I have a lot of jobs to do, so that if somebody knew I was in AA, I'd be the kind of person that they would want to refer to other people to help, or would want to, ask questions of, or whatever. It would be an honor if someone broke my anonymity and somebody came to me and wanted help. I don't see any fear, because I had, like Jay was saying, I had no fear being in bars and, doing bad things, being loud, obnoxious, whatever. I would definitely showed that I was an alcoholic, and now if I can show that I'm finding relief through this and show my spirituality, and someone would actually come to me because I'm in AA, that would be an honor to me. So I have no fear of being found out personally, because I believe that this program is a beautiful thing. And the fact that they talk about that they keep the anonymity so that people can continue in level and press and radio to consider it a beautiful thing, that people don't come out and say I'm in AA. And the world thinks of AA, I think the world thinks of AA as a beautiful thing that helps people. I don't think they think of it as a bunch of weak people. I think that the general consensus really out there is a place that helps people. That's how I feel that the world feels. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes,
I'm
Roberta.
an alcoholic and an addict. And I'm very much in agreement with Marilyn insofar as I have no problem with people knowing that I'm an alcoholic and an addict. My family, my cousins, because of it, I have found out about other cousins that have had problems, and when there have been family occasions, and they're now in the rooms, and we talk. And my mother had to go to a tough love course, and I have an Aunt Pearl who has been going through hell and back with her daughter. who has children, and my mother's been helping her. And when Judy has my number, she reaches out to me once in a blue moon, of course when she's only at the bottom of the barrel. And I just saw her a couple of months ago at a family affair, and we talk, where she's at, where I'm at. In my job industry, in phone sales, you will always find a whole handful, a slewful of alcoholic addicts. And when I do start looking for my next job, I don't plan on telling my boss. Because, not that when I went into a phone room I announced, you know, I'm an alcoholic and an addict, but I have filled out applications before where one of the questions is, have you ever had a problem with drugs or alcohol? And since I don't now, I guess my fear is that if I put down yes, then they're not going to hire me. And that part to me is my private and personal life. But when it comes to helping somebody else, or share, you know, even my mother's friends know, because they know the hell that I put her through. And when they see me, if I'm at my mother's house, I feel comfortable enough when they ask me how I'm doing, because I know they care about my mother, they care about me, they've known me for so long. I don't take resentment to it. And because of me not being afraid of certain people knowing, the adults have been able to give my number to their children. Now, whether or not I've gotten the calls or whether or not I've been able to help them, but I have been able to help the parents and say, here's a meeting, there's a meeting. I don't like keeping it a secret, because I don't know. I just don't like keeping it a secret, but I do know that it's not something that I put down on a job application, because I know that is one place, even though they have, I hear they have at IBM and at major corporations, they have people that help people within the companies, but that's not how I would want to start off the job. But I don't care, because if people want to make judgments, you know, I have no control over that. And you know, if I was walking into their house and stumbling over on my own 2 feet and making a fool of myself, that's one thing. But it just goes back to my own personal fears and how I need to deal with it if I'm in an uncomfortable situation.
Well, that's a question that used to be phrased, are you now or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party?
Right.
It's more valid than to ask you if you ever had a broken leg or if you ever had pneumonia. The only valid question is, are you now addicted to alcohol or drugs? Nobody's business if you are not now using alcohol and drugs in your life, any more than it'd be anybody's business if you were used to be afflicted with pleurisy or some other dread disease. Cruel. You don't need to know. If you're in recovery and you're not drinking, you are no threat to them. Also, think about it. There's no such thing as tough love. That's an oxymoron. Think it through.
It was just, of course, the treatment
I
that
understand
my mother through, so how to learn how to put up with me.
Happy charm. There you have it.
Yeah, I'm John. I'm an alcoholic.
John.
I think what it all comes down to is humility. That's one of the basic principles of this whole program. You know, we get these stars. They get on Alan King or Steve King, and they tell the whole world who they are and how wonderful AA is to their life. And the problem there at that level of press and radio and all that. How about this guy goes out and has a slip? What if he relapses? What's going to happen to this? They're not going to ever talk about the millions that have been saved by this program. They're going to talk about that guy there who got on national TV and said what a wonderful program it is, how it saved my life, and 3 weeks later he's out drinking, and that's what they're going to focus on. That's what I think this basic tradition is to save the fellowship. And there's always a thin line too, because I have a friend, and he's in that situation where they want to do a magazine article on him, and he's one of the top guys in his business, and they want to do a magazine article, and he fretted for weeks and weeks and weeks on this thing, and he even asked me. He's my sponsor, and I really had no, because they wanted to ask him about how he overcame drugs and alcohol, and how he's helping other people, and and everybody says, well, all you got to do is just say, I'm in a 12-step program. Well, duh. There's only 2 real ones that deal with drug and alcohol. It's not really anonymity. I thought he shouldn't do it, but a lot of people say he should. It's a wonderful thing, I guess, but I wouldn't know how to handle it. But I know it's a danger line, because what if he goes out and slips? Now all these people in that industry, he's telling everybody what a wonderful thing happened in his life, and it's all through AA, and he slips again. Black eye. I think it's important, and with the family, I kind of agree with you that. Especially your situation, it's just our basic fear, how they will, I told my whole family, it doesn't matter to me what they think. All I know is that, this is what I'm doing with my life right now, and I do. They say, well, you never call, and I say, well, I'm trying to do a lot of work through AA, and what they think of me doesn't matter to me anymore. This is for me. This is for me.
Yeah, but the question, John, Ellie, and everybody else, is not whether we tell our families or not. That's our own decision. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the reason, the motivation.
Oh, yeah.
And if it's fear, what I'm trying to elucidate here is that fear is our enemy. And we have to recognize fear wherever it strikes and be free of the fear. It's nobody's business whether we tell our families or not. That's up to us. But we have to be very careful what reasons we have for not telling. And we don't pander to fear. The moment we give into that, we're right back in the soup that we were in before. Because fear is our enemy. It rules us if we let it. Yes,
I want to say that actually I work closely with human resources, and as a rule with my companies that I worked for, because I'm unemployed right now, I'm unemployed because I quit my job because I'm going back to New Jersey, and the company I worked for before, and if there is any indication that anyone has a problem with any form of addiction, we do not ask it of you, but if we do know it, and sometimes we get a heads up from someone else, another person from another company will say, by the way, so-and-so may be looking for a job, we immediately will blackball you, and you're blackballed throughout the industry. So you would be wise not to put that down, and if you are asked, just go around it, for your own self-protection. And as far as me, they never saw me drunk because I've been sober now 3 years, and prior to that I had 7 years sobriety. So his family has never seen me drink, and then, so they've never seen, and when I did drink, my bar was my kitchen, so no one saw me drink, only my family. Unfortunately for me. I think it's better when it's out in the open. It's easier to deal with, because if I was to say I'm an alcoholic, Ellie,
Anyway, I just want to clarify, but I appreciate the input.
That beautiful, wonderful, sensitive person, an alcoholic,
Yeah.
there'd be no possibility that
And then the other thing you have to acknowledge, though, that, you know, if a man is a drunk, you know, he got bombed the other day, yeah, boy, was he funny. But there is a double standard for a female alcoholic as a male alcoholic. There really is. You know.
Oh, yeah, they're much more disgusting.
To me, like that should be illegal.
That's bad.
A man can do one thing, we can do the same thing as we're drunk, but, you know, he got drunk and boy, did you see that Ellie again? Oh my
You're
God.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
But those questions you said, they sound like they should be illegal.
What?
If you had a past problem with drugs and alcohol.
Well, they can't ask it of you. It's illegal to ask that.
Mm-hmm.
But if that information is passed, you will be blackballed, at least in the business that I've been in.
Exactly what did happen to me.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep, absolutely.
Well, that's the reality of it, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Doc, what do you got for us?
Well, just a few comments. My name's Howard, and I'm a member of AA here.
Hey, Howard.
And number one, it's interesting about this anonymity that when I was reading one of the books in the temple, it spoke about the different types of giving that's in the temple, and there were, I think, 6 or 7 different states, and it was, giving where the recipient knew who the giver was, and so the highest form of giving that you can have is where the recipient didn't know from whom it was coming, and the giver didn't know to whom it was going. And that's the same sort of thing with the anonymity here. The motivation is truly from the heart, in the highest form of being closest to God when you give, and for no other reason. That you don't get to know the person, and the recipient, doesn't need to know who gave it to them. And I think that that's just an interesting analogy here. But the other thing that you were speaking about, it seems like Ellie and I have a lot of ways that we think are very similar, in that I too have had a difficult time with the way that she's discussing it, in that not letting people know of being judged. And I really like what you said very much, in that first you have to go ahead and take fear out of the equation, which really goes ahead and confuses the entire issue. Then you see the issue for what it is. And I can tell you that is where, in and of itself, it's a problem for me, because I work 2 ways. One, I would be very forgiving to somebody who would be here saying, aren't they a proactive person going ahead and making the best for themselves? But yet when it comes to me, I won't apply that same sort of logic. I'm still not good enough, not doing well, all the negatives. So I have a positive outlook when I'm looking at someone else, but a negative when I'm reflecting upon myself. That's all a big part of my disease. And that's what I had to share.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, you still don't want to be a bad little yeshiva boy, do you? That sticks with you, man. So we got Marilyn. You get the double dip, but go ahead.
My name's Tom Apple. Sorry. I think it gets down when dealing with the general public. I think what will happen, or once you're in the media, in press, or whatnot, even if you had good motives, I think eventually it can get blown out of proportion. And your ego, you may think that you're doing good, and actually taking money, or doing good, and then eventually I think what will start to happen, you could have people donating large sums of money to you, and basically I think that's where their motives are going to start warping your thoughts, because they're going to start controlling your actions in a way, because a lot of people that donate, like wings of hospitals, you could cut the lines, to get your own people in. I mean, I was hospitalized 9 years ago for this, and I got into, a clinic afterwards. There's a waiting list for clinics, but I knew somebody that was a director there. I got through. No waiting list, but people had to wait a couple years. It was subsidized. but since I knew somebody, I just cut the lines. And I think that's the heart of, even if the person thinks they're doing good, once you have these outside interests contributing money, and that's eventually, I think, that's where problems would start. And on the work issue, I had trouble with that, especially after I got out of rehab and started working, and I was out of control at work, and I managed my company's, their capital, and I was out of control. I was gambling, and I was really, and there was a lot of fear, and I was like, how can I tell them, but after thinking it through, I finally went into my manager and said, look, I gotta tell you, I'm managing a substantial amount of money, and I'm losing, and I just got out of rehab, and if you still want to give me your money to manage. But he basically said it takes a big man to do what you're doing, and he said, I haven't had a drink in 30 years, and he goes, how many you do in meetings? And he goes, and also talk to this other manager in Miami, and now I'm going to meetings with him. It was the best thing I could have did, and my capital didn't get cut. It got cut a little bit, and I was still out of control a little bit, and one time a manager came in and said, what's your plan? I said, I'm just wrong. And he goes, yeah, what's your plan? I don't know. Because I had that addictive personality that I didn't have my fix of drugs, and now I'm going to just gamble. And it was just coming out, but that subsided a lot. I still get a little bit, but I'm working through it, and it was a good thing for me to tell. And I really didn't think I would be able. I thought they would just say, "Oh, you're doing terrible and you're losing us a fortune. You can't, cut me down to hardly anything that I can't make a living." And they basically, I guess they still watch me, but they gave me my capital back and gave me. And so I'm glad I came forward at work. But
did they introduce you to that guy that was standing behind you, that guy named Guido?
That's the people in New York. I thought that was going to happen. But everything's good and
That's Dominic's brother. Marilyn, you are burning the fuse down there.
No. I just wanted to say another example of what you were talking about, where you can't make decisions when you have fear. I was talking to somebody somebody mentioned in a meeting the other day, he couldn't decide whether to go up north to see this girl or not, stay down here. Afterwards, I spoke with him, and I said, God will give you the answer. And he said, well, I'm afraid if I don't go up there, that God won't have anybody else for me, right? So I said, well, you have to remove the fear, and once you remove the fear, then the right decision will come. God will give you the right decision. So ask to remove that fear. So it's like with everything, if in our conversation is saying why we don't do something, we use, well, I'm afraid. That's where the fear is, and that's got to be removed before we can go on in any decision, not just in this one, but in any, like in a job or all. The fears have to be removed because, I'm just saying, instead of so.
Well, why don't you tell the truth about what you really said?
I will. I'm not afraid to either. I'm not afraid of you, Jim.
She is sassy. Way too sassy.
Didn't he say, looking at you, I'm pretty sure he doesn't have anybody else in mind?
Looking at you, he has somebody else.
She would never say anything like that. Marilyn, just excuse him. He knows not what he says.
Anyway, you're all invited tomorrow. You're all invited tomorrow to come out to the lake. I'm going to be changing loaves and fishes. So
What's that?
You're in trouble. You wait for the surprise on anniversary night, buddy.
Okay. All right, guys, if there's nothing else come before this meeting, it is adjourned. You guys gotta put
I can't bring your CD back, but it's been up to work
Good to see you.
That's okay.
Did you hear that?
Let this circle represent the unity of our fellowship. Without a moment of silence for those who are still suffering, we'll say the Lord's Prayer together. And except for those of you who absolutely insist on saying something afterwards, the rest of us will not say anything after we say amen. Thank you. Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you all for being here. See you next week.